The third chaotic set has arrived for Chaotic Rewind. The Silent Sands set has finally been released, and now all 4 tribes can be chosen as a starter. So if you haven't played Chaotic Rewind yet, now is the perfect time to make an account, log in, pick a starter. If you're waiting for the Mipedian tribe to be available, it's now available. And starter decks have been improved. If you see here, the starter decks now guarantee an ultra rare scan. That is insane. If you don't know how insane that is, there are only 23 possible ultra rare scans in the first 3 sets, and I only have one of them, and I've been playing for over a month. I've been playing since before the Zenith of the Hive release, and the only ultra rare scan I have is Carnival of Confusion, which I literally got from an event. I've not actually scanned anything ultra rare on the map. So, if you haven't played already, you're going to be choosing your tribe, pick your starter, you're going to get your crazy ultra rare scan. But if you've been playing already and you're checking out the map, what's new, check out Mipedum Oasis. There are 3 new sub-locations. We got Catacombs of the Conjurers, Indigo Grove, and Mipedian Dew Farm. Now, these are not the only new locations that are being released with Silent Sands. We have some Mirage locations too. There's probably something that's going to go on with that. If you look at the code scanner here, it talks about the new Silent Sands update, and it talks about the stars aligning over Perim for this new rare event called the Acles or the Acles. I don't know how to say that. But Force of Life during Acles, I'm going to say Acles. Force of Life during Acles is a new location that comes out for Silent Sands. So I assume during this event, Force of Life is going to change. Also, see, it says tip of the day, there are many tall tales about the mirages of the Mipedum Desert. This is probably in reference to the mirage locations that aren't on the map. Somewhere in the Mipedum Oasis, you should have access to these mirage locations. Maybe it means any of these sub-locations you can go to and you have the chance to scan one. I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. I got my first scan quest going on. I decided to do it at the Darkened Dunes because I want to get to the Catacombs of the Conjurers. I don't know if I can get there from any of these 4 or not, but just physically looking at it, it's right beside. So I went for it. And we'll see what happens. Now I want to talk about all the new cards that are coming out in this set. Depending on the tribe that you've chosen, the tribe you're going with, there are specific cards you should be targeting to improve your deck. If you're an overworld player, you have 10 new creature scans available to you in this new set. But not all these creatures are good. So to start off with the creatures you shouldn't be trying to scan, we have Hifdan. Now listen, if you're just scanning some of these creatures because you like the creature, you want to have them in your scan collection, of course, go for whatever you want. Get those creatures you like them from the show, maybe like their lore, whatever. But talking from strictly a deck building perspective, this guy sucks. Look at his stats. The only stat he has at 50 is courage, and that's exactly at 50. Everything else is below. Sure, he has fire and earth, so that does pair well with Maxor's elements, but the stats don't work, and he only has 40 energy. And he has an ability when a creature you control has a Mugic counter put on it, gain range and swift 2. But it's not easy to have a creature you control gain a Mugic counter. It's pretty situational to get that range and swift 2. It's better to just plop Skeletal Steed on somebody and jump the other team's backline. I would skip this guy in your deck. Another creature scan to avoid is Olkiex. He does have an interesting ability, but it's relying on the same thing. When a creature you control has a Mugic counter put on it, there's not an easy way to do that in an overworld deck, besides the only upside is you flip a battle gear face down. Yeah, that's good, because you get some battle gear hate, but it's not easy to pull off. And then as a fighter, he's okay. Like, he's not bad. 50 energy, water, high wisdom. He could pair well in a water deck, but I'd rather have the water 5, to be honest. And Loma is just, in my opinion, strictly better as a water fighter. Now listen, some of you may hate me for this, but the third overworld creature you should be avoiding to put in your deck is Iparu. I know, Iparu is so sick. I love Iparu too. He's an ultra rare. He shapeshifts, but he's just not good. His ability makes his stats match the opponent. So when you build a deck, that relies on specific stats, well, then your opponent needs to have stats that work. If you're playing Overworld Wisdom, for example, and the opponent is Underworld and they got high power, like, you're screwed. Yes, he does have a Mugic counter. 50 energy is not bad. Like, it's good. It's good, to be honest. Fire and air, but like fire and air also doesn't pair really well with the overworld creatures we have right now. He's just kind of mid. But like, if I get the chance to scan him, I'm gonna take it. But that's after I focus on building my deck. Now I want to go over some of the creatures that have some potential. They might not be the creatures you want to go and try and find right away, but they could improve your deck. So first we got Cult. Cult is cool because of his ability, but it really depends on where the ban list goes for Silent Sands. We've got Mugic like Elemental Elegy, which is legendary, still playable, that can remove an element. We also have Carnival Confusion, which is location that's playable. It changes around your elements. Elemental Denial is currently banned, but if it gets unbanned, that can be played at 2 copies. Now, Cult, his ability, a creature you control gains an elemental type of your choice. It's great to counteract Elemental Hate, and it's good if you got a creature you want to run. Maybe you ran one of those attacks that makes you lose your energy. Maybe you have a creature that doesn't have the matching energy, or did I just say energy? Sorry. Maybe you have a creature that you ran an attack to lose your element. There we go. Back on track. To lose your element. Cult can help you with that. Or you have a creature that doesn't have the element you need because they're support, but your support gets jumped. Cult can help you with that. It's also got water and 2 Mugic counters, so you can just use them to throw some Mugic out there too. He's not the best backliner, but depending on where the meta goes, where the ban list goes, he could be important. Next, I have Karaba. Now, Karaba is interesting because you can kind of say he's like Vidov, right? Your first heal will heal 20, and then your second heal will heal 10, and Vidov is 15-15, so it's 30 overall. But Karaba can only be played once per turn. You play that heal 20, you can't use his ability again until the next turn. Now, if you play him with Garv and you equip him with Musician's Lyre, you can flip up Musician's Lyre, sack it, give him 40 counters. Now he has a heal 30. That's an option. That's something you could do. Give him the heal 30. Now he's better than Vidov. Even if you don't do the Garv strat, you use the heal 20 once and then you use the heal 10 another time. He still has another counter after that you can use. He's a little less flexible than Vidov is, but there are situations where he's better. Then there's Victar. Now, Victar's cool. His ability, if it works, can kind of shut down a Mipedian strike deck. If Victar has higher courage and wisdom than the opposing engaged creature, the first attack against it, each combat deals 0. Now, Mipedians seem to not have good stats in these sets. Outside of War Beast, though. Silent Sands introduces some War Beasts. They have some good stats. But outside of that, especially against strike decks, even Prince Mudinu, who's got, I'm pretty sure he has 70 wisdom. Correct me if I'm wrong. Pretty sure 70 wisdom. And he definitely doesn't have at least 75 courage. Victar completely shuts down his invisibility strike 20. 40 energy is a little low, but with the high courage and high wisdom and 2 different elements, he can definitely be thrown into a deck. The only downside, well, not the only downside, but another downside is his lack of Mugic counters. The last creature in the alright category is Wytod. Wytod is really cool. His ability, Sacrifice to choose a new target for target Mugic, which only targets a single creature, could be very interesting into an Underworld burn deck. If somebody's casting Caster's Warsong on you, you can sack Wytod and reflect that back onto their own creature. The only thing is, I don't know how much value you always get with Wytod, and he's taking up a creature space. So sometimes you can't afford to run him, even with the 1 Mugic counter. And sometimes maybe you don't want to play Mugic yet, but you want to sack him. You're losing that Mugic counter. We'll see if people can find uses for him. I'm not entirely sold on him yet.
Overworld has 3 more creatures coming out in the set, and these are the best. These are the creatures you should be targeting to scan. First, we have Clodor. Clodor has 95 wisdom. That's the highest wisdom out of any creature in the first 3 sets, the only sets that are currently out. This makes him the best creature to make a wisdom deck with. Overworld already has creatures with high wisdom. For example, you can slot in Maxor into a wisdom deck. You can also have Loma with high wisdom, who also has Defender to stop those skeletal skeed creatures, that pesky Como trying to jump into your backline. His ability is nice as well. If you're lacking a little bit of counters on your fighters, once you win a wisdom challenge or two, you can cast all your Mugic. Then there's Kinian. Kinian, at face value, is strong even as a fighter. 55 energy, earth, decent stats, and 2 Mugic counters. She can fight and cast Mugic, slots perfectly into an earth deck. But the key with Kinian is the ability to cast Mipedian Mugic. Mipedians have some of the best Mugic out of all the tribes. If you look at Melody of Mirage, Gear Glissando, Mugic like that, you can slot in one of each. You could play something like Song of Shelter if you're worried about burn. You could play Notes of Neverwhere if there's locations you don't like. It's a very nice ability that gives you access to more Mugic options. Finally, we have Arbeed. I saved Arbeed for last because his ability is so strong. You can make any attack deal 5. This completely destroys the Mipedian Strike whole idea. You're stacking strike damage off someone, they cast Fanfare the Vanishing to up that strike damage, boom, attack does 5 no matter what. Yes, you can only use it once per turn. It's not completely broken, but he's very strong. He, I think, is the best Overworlder coming out in this set. And I don't know if you can justify not running him. If you're running Overworld, I don't think there's a reason not to run Arbeed. For Mugic, Overworld has 4 different Mugics coming out in this set. First one I'm going to talk about is Echoes of Empty Hands. If you look at it, it's basically just a worse Discord of Disarming, because you destroy the opponent's gear but you give them 10 energy. It's not that good. The only reason I would say you could run it is if you're really worried about Stone Mail, because you don't have a good way, as an overall player, you don't have a good way to get rid of gear. I don't know. It doesn't seem that good to me. Then there's Song of the Dyad. Heal 10 or deal 10. Like, the flexibility, I guess you can say, is nice, but 10 of either value is pretty bad. You want to be, if you're dealing 10, you want to have another effect, like Song of Fury for Underworld. If you're healing, you want to be healing at least 15. Overworld has Song of Resurgence that heals 20. I don't think you should be running Song of Dyad ever, unless you're out of options. But I would skip this Mugic. Then we have Rhyme of the Reckless. Now, this is a good Mugic. Being able to reflect the damage that the opponent is putting onto you is really nice, especially when you're Overworld and you're a healing tribe. You can take the damage more than other decks will be able to do. You reflect damage onto Underworld, they can't heal as much. You reflect damage onto Mipedian, they can't heal as much. Danians, which will actually come alive in this set, again, can't heal as much. You have most of the healing. You got Vidov, Momark, you have Karaba coming out, Double Song of Resurgence. That's why Rhyme is really good paired with an Overworld healing deck. The last Mugic you're going to get is Strain of the Tide. Now, this is an interesting Mugic because if you look at it, it's pretty bad when you start the game. You don't get to heal any. You lose a creature, you're going to heal 10. But if you end up in a situation where you've lost your supports, you've lost most of your creatures, you got 1 frontline left, you have a heal 50 fighting with this creature because you have 5 Overworlds in the graveyard. It's also cost 0, so you don't have to have any Mugic counters left, which can sometimes catch your opponent off guard. With the Silent Sands update, Underworld is the tribe that gains the least, which I think is fair because they're definitely the best tribe without a ban list after the first 2 sets. So maybe with this update, some Underworld cards can come off the ban list. We'll see. But starting off with the creatures, you have Vil or Vile. It's just another Mugicaster with a pretty trash ability. I'd rather run a different Underworlder that has 2 Mugic counters that can fight, like Toxus, or with an ability like Olmar. Or Solvis even has a better ability. I would completely skip this guy. Atropol is another generic Underworld fighter with trash energy, 45. For Underworld, that's pretty bad. And his ability is not that good. If you win a power challenge, you destroy the opponent's gear. Underworld already has decent gear destruction, and his base power is kind of bad, 55. Yes, I know you can boost that with gear, but then you have to use a power gear for sure. Even if you're using Web Crack to try and combine with fire, he doesn't have fire. He's only earth. I just think he's a bad Underworld fighter. I would completely skip him. Zapater, on the other hand, has an interesting ability. Does have fire and earth, so can be slotted into either fire or earth deck. I mean, you're not using him as a fighter, but at least he can fight if you need him to. He has the potential. His energy does suck, but he has the potential because he's got the elements. But his ability is interesting. You can sack your own gear to deal 5. It's pretty niche when you might want to do this. It's usually good to sack probably a gear off a support just to get an extra 5 damage in. He also can be sacked himself to destroy a gear. So if you're out of gear destruction, didn't realize the opponent has Stone Mail, you can sack him to destroy it. I don't know, if he's better than some other supports that have more Mugic counters, because you don't really need more gear destruction, and you don't really need an extra 5 damage for a whole creature slot. But he is interesting, and he might fit into some decks. Falfor is an interesting one. First off, I think he's super cool. So at some point, I'm going to head over. I assume he's scannable at Glacier Plains. I'm going to head over to Glacier Plains and try and scan him. And he is playable. He has some potential purely because of his ability. On your turn, being able to move one opponent's creature into an unoccupied adjacent space means you can move a support from the midline to the front line to be able to attack. That has its uses. It won't work in every game, but you can also shuffle some creatures around. There is some potential to kind of mess up your opponent. And that's why I think he has his place, and I'm sure he'll show up in a couple decks. But the best creature for Underworld from this update is Copon. And it's Copon because he has a mix of a little bit of burn plus 3 Mugic counters. He's the first Underworld creature with 3 Mugic counters. That in itself is nice if you're running some fighters that don't have Mugic counters, or if you're running like an Olmar who you want to use his counters to deal damage. You have extra with Copon. His abilities, you can't really stack Mugic counters on him. There's not a good way to. But you do have burn 10, basically. You can use his ability once, deal 10 damage, then you can use the rest of his counters to play Mugic. That's why I think he's the best. Underworld is kind of lacking in creatures, so maybe with another tribe he wouldn't even be classified in the best category, but he's the best Underworld has. And, he's a pretty good support. Unfortunately, Underworld only gets 2 Mugic with this update, but fortunately, they're both very good. Strain of Ash is basically Discord of Disarming, but it costs 0. Yes, you have to sack your own gear, but usually you have some support in the back line that's not going to be fighting, or if they do, they're dead. Like you have an Olmar in the back. Maybe you're running Copon now, you have Copon in the back. You can sack their gear to get a free gear destruction on the opponent. That's why Strain of Ash is really good. It's used if you played any Chaotic Recode like in standard format. Strain of Ash is used all the time. Another one, Song of Desperation is the other one. This is also really good. It's, first of all, it's not a heal 30, it's a gain 30, and that's a big difference. You can't get one shot because you have this gain. Yes, your checks and challenges will deal 0, but it's also gain 30. What other Mugic right now gives you 30 energy? The best, I think, is Song of Resurgent, which is a heal 20. This Mugic is very strong. Danians gain the same amount of cards that Underworld does. They get 5 new creatures and 2 new Mugic. First creature I want to talk about is Macrobon. And the reason I'm talking about him first is because of how much he sucks. He's just a support that can activate Hive. Danians already have supports with 2 Mugic counters, and you literally have Alexia that can activate Hive at any time. There's no reason to run this guy ever. Then there's Lobane. Lobane has 3 Mugic counters, so that's important. The ability's kind of meh. Use it once per turn, and you can gain one of the elemental proofs, which means you can gain 10 energy before combat. That's alright. Like, it's nothing to scoff at, but it's also not game changing. Rasnus Assimilated is an interesting one. He has 50 energy and water, so in a Danian water deck, he can fight. And his ability is pretty interesting. Once per turn, you could make all Danian creatures on your team untargetable. If he had 2 Mugic counters, he'd be a little stronger. 1 means he can't really play Mugic. He's there for his ability. And it's not a bad ability. Like, it'll help against Underworld when they're trying to cast their burn Mugic on you. But 2 counters would be a little better. 2 counters and not once per turn would be great. But we'll take what we can get for Danians, to be honest. He's alright. And now, I know I said earlier, Danians can actually play in this set. And I know you're thinking, well, there's only 2 creatures to go. Let me show you why. These 2 creatures are why Danians can actually play in this set. Hammerdoom Assimilated and Como Assimilated. Yes, they stole some of the best creatures from the other tribes and assimilated them. But listen, it worked. Hammerdoom, on paper, he's nothing crazy. 55 energy is decent, and he has Earth, all right stats. But Danians already have very little to work with in terms of fighters. Also, the ability is very good when a lot of people play Underworld. Plus 5 damage into any Underworld creature is really strong. Then you have Colmo. Colmo has Surprise, which is key. Being able to always attack first is about a 10 to 15 energy swing. Sorry, not energy swing, but I'll say advantage for you because you get to attack first. Because your attacks on average are doing 10 to 15 damage. Also, 60 energy is pretty good. That bonus, if you're fighting a Mipedian Royal, when it works, like into Prince Mudinu, it'll cancel his Strike 20. Amazing. Won't come up often. But it's just another really strong fighter with Earth. So the best Danian deck is going to run both of these guys. An Earth deck. Alexia also 50 energy and Earth. Not bad. You got something going now if you're playing Danians. Melody of Parasitic Mayhem is an interesting music. You can infect the target engaged unaffected creature. And if Hive is active, you can uninfect all the opponent's creatures and deal 5 damage to target creature for each creature uninfected this way. It's an interesting roundabout way to deal some damage, but I think it requires too much setup to be worth it, to be honest. I actually like Strain of Infection better because you only need to infect 3 creatures. Doesn't have to be the opponent. And if you uninfect 3, you can gain 3 Mugic counters. This can pair well with Lore. If you're running Lore and you manage to infect 3 creatures, you can uninfect 3, give Lore 3 more Mugic counters because it starts with 3. Now you have 60 burns just sitting there. That is nothing to scoff at. So I think if you can run some sort of Danian deck with Hammerdoom, Colmo, Alexia, and Lore, maybe throwing Rasnus Assimilated, maybe even Lobane, maybe that's your lineup because you get a lot of Mugic counters that way. Maybe that's your lineup, but you need to find a way to infect creatures, then run Strain of Infection, uninfect onto Lore. If you're running Song of Symmetry, that's a Mugic you should be running. There's a decent deck to be found there. You know I had to save the best for last with Mipedians. Mipedians get a whopping 15 new creatures in Silent Sands and 5 new Mugic. But even with this entirely Mipedian focused set, there are definitely some misses that you should just be avoiding. First one I want to talk about is Jermes. Jermes is just eclipsed out by other conjurers. Yes, you reduce recklessness by 10 to your war beast, which is important. And if he's the only conjurer you have, you got to play him at 2. But because of his ability, you can only really play one Mugic off of him. He effectively has one Mugic counter. And that's it. It's just a one Mugic counter conjurer that can reduce your recklessness by 10. Then there's Fivarth. Fivarth is also bad. Yeah, okay, he's untargetable, so he can't get burned. But he only reduces recklessness by 5. That's not enough to run him. You're running him at 2, like it's reducing recklessness by 10. There are just better conjurers, again, to run. A little better because he's got 2 Mugic counters. So he's got more Mugic counter. Okay, I know Jermes has 2, but basically it's 1. Fivarth has 2. But again, there are just better conjurers. Sand is a cool addition to the tribe. Sand is Invisibility Surprise, Air 5, and 50 energy. Komo's like the only fighter that has more than 50 energy. Everybody else has got less. But he's got no Mugic counters, which is a problem because Mipedians kind of struggle for Mugic counters. Obviously, you're going to be running Como if you're running Invisibility Strike. Or any Invisibility deck. He's got no Mugic counters. So you need Mugic counters on your other fighters. It's going to be very hard to justify playing Como with Sand, unfortunately. His ability's kind of cool, though. You can sack him to remove Mugic counters from the opponent, which if they don't have enough Mugic counters, or they don't have any extra Mugic counters, they're not going to be able to play all their Mugic. So that is cool, but again, you have to lose a fighter for that. So try him out, but I'm not completely sold on Sand. Then there's Gnarlus. Gnarlus, no elements, not really a fighter, 45 energy, okay. His ability's alright, but it's basically just Song of Shelter in a creature. I'd rather just run Song of Shelter. So he's like, maybe he has his uses. You could run him if you don't have Song of Shelter, or if you want like Song of Shelter plus another creature. That's why I guess I put him in alright, but he could even go into the bad category, if I'm being honest. I don't think he has much potential. Then there's Melk. Melk has air and earth, so that's something going for him. And he's got strike 10. It's not bad. But right now, a lot of the creatures you have are just air, unless you're a War Beast. And if you're running War Beast, you're running War Beast, you're not running Melk. So the earth doesn't really matter. And then he just has a little less energy than you would like. And he's got the strike 10, but then he's got no damage. Like, he has no air 5 after. I think he's okay. He's not bad, though. If you're running a lot of Mirages in your deck and you get that strike 20 enough, you can justify running him. Because strike 20 is pretty good. Actually, it's really good. But it only happens once in a while. So you have to see how many Mirages you have if you can justify that. Now to get to the most exciting, in my opinion, part about the Silent Sands update. The War Beasts. Let's talk about Uberon. Uberon is an okay War Beast. Has air and earth. That's good. Has good power. Has good speed. Okay courage. Trash wisdom. But that's fine. That's pretty standard for a War Beast. Outside of like Gafat Ra, who's got insanely high wisdom for whatever reason. Fireproof 10 and Waterproof 10. That's pretty good. A lot of water overworld decks, a lot of fire underworld decks. Rec 15, as long as you're running 2 Conjurers, that's going to be gone. It's like, Uberon's good. Uberon is good. The only reason that Uberon, it doesn't seem really strong is because Blasvitan exists. That's the reason. Blasvitan just straight up is way better than Uberon in every way, but Uberon's solid, and Uberon is a good War Beast that to pair with Blasvitan. Eerie is another War Beast that's very interesting. And at least Eerie has like its own niche where it has range and Swift 4. Swift 4 means Eerie could be in the back of your deck and can still reach the back of the opponent's deck. Only Recklessness 10. You only need 1 Conjurer here, as long as you're not running Fivarth. 1 Conjurer.
100 speed is really good for a lot of speed challenges, and 50 energy as well. That's solid. Erie's a cool war beast to have if you want to be able to jump the backline. But there are two other war beasts that I think are better. And first one is Titanics. Titanics has 60 energy, first of all. That's a really solid energy count. Good courage and speed, but has Intimidate Courage 50 and Intimidate Speed 50. That means you can run a deck that has courage attacks, speed attacks, and you're going to be hitting those challenges like 100% of the time. Unless you're into the only one who's you're not going to hit those challenges against is Blazertan, because Blazertan has insane courage and speed, as you'll see in a second. Rec 20 means you have to run 2 Conjurers, but it's not hard to run 2 Conjurers. Titanics is really cool. And there's enough courage and speed attacks that you can just do this. And having the 75 count is important because there are those 2 BP attacks that need the stat 75 courage, stat 75 speed to hit. You're hitting those. And also Titanics looks fucking sick, dude. Titanic looks sick. But Titanics is still overshadowed by everyone knows who I'm about to say. Blazvitan, the epic war beast. Yeah, he is my favorite chaotic creature if you give me all the sets. He's so cool. My favorite episode of the show is the War Beast episode where Blazvitan is that main War Beast being played in the dromes. Air 5 and Earth 5. Double elements, 150 courage and speed, and 70 energy. Insane. That's the highest energy count. That's the highest energy count of all the creatures right now. Tied with Rothar, I think. Rothar also has 70. Tied with Rothar. Yes, there's Recklessness 25, which is a lot. That means you're going to have to be running 3 Conjurers. But it's worth it. This guy is a beast. He is an absolute beast. And he looks sick. I'm also biased to him because when I first joined Chaotic, War Beasts were sick. I played War Beasts and I won my first tournament with War Beasts. And I've loved him ever since. I've literally loved this guy ever since. I play War Beasts a lot. They're kind of in a decent spot in Standard right now as well. So I've been playing them in Standard. And now they're coming into Rewind. I'm so excited. The only downside is he is ultra rare, which means I'm going to have to grind and find him. As I mentioned before, I don't have an ultra rare scan yet. Oh, okay, I do. I have Carnival of Confusion. But I haven't actually scanned one. I'm hoping Blazvitan will be my first. I'm literally going to spend as long as it takes to find Blazvitan. The Conjurers you should be playing with your War Beast deck, because we covered the bad ones. The good ones are Bilkian and Renan. They both reduce Recklessness by 10 by default, and they have good abilities. Bilkian's ability is good because if you lose a Conjurer, you can use his ability to still reduce Recklessness. And Renan is good because he can heal. Healing is also really important. The only thing is, if you're running a front line of 3 War Beasts, and you have 3 Conjurers, each with 2 Mugic counters, it's going to be a little difficult to cast the Mugic that you want and also play abilities. So you have to find a way around that. Mipedians are spoiled this set. We also have some other interesting creatures that are really strong outside of the War Beast archetype. One of these is Lanker. Lanker is really cool because you're using his energy as a resource. He loses 5 energy and you can choose any stat, target your creature gains 15 in the chosen discipline. This is really good in mixed decks as well. It doesn't have to be a Mipedian. He's not loyal, right? You could be running a mixed deck that uses stats and you want to up it. I think he gets even better in later sets. I'm not sure what kind of deck you might want to play him in right now, but in later sets, he's going to be amazing. But he's still good. I think he's still really good. Then there's Naina. Naina is interesting. So in later sets, when we unlock Fluid Morphers, Naina is going to be really strong. Right now, she's still pretty good. You can move around counters on your creatures. You can move around counters on the opponent's creatures. You can mess them up as well. That's why it's pretty good. The ability is really strong. That's the only thing. But again, she's kind of like Lanker, where she's good right now, but she gets really good a little bit later. We also have Zelf. Zelf has 3 Mugic counters, which is huge, and his ability is very strong. You get that range and swift onto any creature you want, basically. So this is good if you're not running like Como, if you're not running Eerie. And again, he can be used in mixed decks. He's not loyal. And the last creature the Mipedians get, who's another ultra rare, is Enrahep. Enrahep is really interesting because you can give the opponent Recklessness 5. And when you lose a creature that has Mugic counters, Enrahep gains those Mugic counters. So you're never forced to play Mugic off a creature that's going to die. Otherwise, you lose the counter. It's a wasted counter. Because if he dies, Enrahep gets a counter. Enrahep is also paired really well with Rivian. Because Rivian makes the opponent's creatures take 5 extra damage when they deal damage to themselves. Recklessness is the opponent dealing damage to themselves. So he's also a good tech if you're going against Warbeast. If you want to tech against Warbeast, Rivian is very strong. So Enrahep is another ultra rare that I'm definitely going to be trying to scan. And as you can see, Mipedians are so spoiled. Let's move on to the Mugic. The weakest Mugic that Mipedians get in the set is Hymn of Teleportation. Because there needs to be a Mirage location, either active or placed on the board somewhere. So if the active location is a Mirage, you can put it into play on any space. So that means, because if you don't know how a Mirage location works, when it becomes the active location, it has its main ability in play. Then once it's the next turn, instead of the location just disappearing, it gets placed on the battle board anywhere you like. If it's your location, you get to place it on any of the 12 spaces on the battle board you like. Then the Mirage effect comes into play for anyone who's on that location. So with Hymn of Teleportation, if a Mirage location is active, so it's not on the board yet, it's just active location, you can place it onto the board anywhere and then reveal a new active location. Or if there's already a Mirage location in play, you get to move it to any space. So it is interesting with the Mirages that you can have. You can move stuff around, but I don't know how useful it is. I think there's just better Mugic. Speaking of better Mugic, we have Strain of Expensive Delusions. Remember I said earlier with Warbeast you might be struggling with Mugic counters a little bit? Well, this helps because it costs 0. And it's a 0 gear destruction. 0 cost gear destruction. You do need a Mirage in play to use it. But what happens is you place your Mirage wherever you want, and any creatures on that Mirage, you can cast this Mugic, it destroys their gear. So, for example, you can throw it on the opponent's Lord Von Blute, destroy their gear. Right? You know the opponent has a Stone Mail on a certain creature, you place it there, destroy their gear. So it's good because it costs 0. Then there's Tune of Zerium. Tune of Zerium is the perfect counter to gear destruction. Maybe you have Warbeast Power Leash on your Blasvatan, and you're against Underworld and they played Discord of Disarming. Or maybe some Overworld decks were running Echoes of Empty Hands. They destroy your leash. You can sacrifice another battle gear you have. So you can sacrifice a battle gear on one of your supports. And you can return another battle gear from your discard pile back to an unequipped creature you control. So they destroy your leash. All you got to do is sack a gear by playing Tune of Zerium, and you can bring your leash back. It's solid. It's a great Mugic. We also have Armament Adagio. Armament Adagio lets you swap any battle gear on 2 target creatures controlled by the same player. So you can use this to mess up 2 different creatures on the opponent's team. That's why it's really strong. Because, for example, maybe they're running Lord Von Blute in a fire deck, and Lord Von Blute has Pyroblaster, which is the gear that you sack to gain fire. You can swap his gear with some other fire creature that maybe has like Webcrack. Now Lord Von Blute doesn't have fire, has a useless Webcrack, and the other creature who already has fire has a useless Pyroblaster. That's why this is really strong. At a minimum, you're messing up the gear of one creature. The only downside is you have to target both the creatures, which means something like Song of Shelter can block it. Whereas if you're targeting the gear, that can't usually be blocked. We've also got a third ultra rare scan for the Mipedians in Fighter's Fanfare. Now, Fighter's Fanfare is insane. Damage dealt by the next attack that resolves this turn is dealt to target engaged creature instead. How that works is it's like Rime of the Reckless, except you don't actually take any damage. So if you're against Mipedian Strike, Maybe they got Prince Mudinu and they play like a 15 damage base attack. Plus they got the strike 20. So they're dealing 35. With Rhyme of the Reckless, which is the overworld Mugic we talked about, you would take 35, but that would also be reflected against the opponent who's going to take 35. Instead, Fighter's Fanfare makes it so you take 0 and the opponent takes 35 damage. That's how it works. But the difference is Fighter's Fanfare targets the opponent's creature, with Rhyme of the Reckless doesn't. I know the Rhyme of the Reckless Mugic originally says targeting, like you have to target the opponent, but how it works in Recode, because it was kind of errata, is you don't actually target the opponent, you target the attack. So Fighter's Fanfare can be blocked by Song of Shelter, but Rhyme of the Reckless cannot. That's the only upside to Rhyme of the Reckless over Fighters. Also, Rhyme of the Reckless costs 1, Fighter's Fanfare costs 2. But in most cases, Fighter's Fanfare is going to be the better Mugic. Anyways, that's all the new cards you're going to be seeing with the Silent Sands update. Maybe there are some other beyond rares or hidden cards that Perim Pancakes has planned. I got no idea. I'm excited to see what people end up scanning, how fast it takes for somebody to get Blaziken. I hope I'm first. I'm going to be grinding. And I'm excited to see what new decks come out with this update. I'm going to be playing a lot of Chaotic Rewind. That's it. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.